You're gonna mute your mic. Okay, you're on speaker.
You tell me we're on YouTube at this? All right. Well, Hag Sameach Teruah. Anybody? Feel like I'm all alone in the universe here. Happy Feast of Noise. Happy Feast of Trumpets. Happy New Year-ish, everyone. All right. The Feast of Teruah is literally a feast of noise. So let's start it off with some noise. Turn off my thing. So you ready, Mr. Lee? I guess he's trying to get on the he's trying to log on to YouTube. Let's give him a couple of minutes. Okay, so our best laid plans have been laid to waste. Oh boy, I have not been practicing. See what we can do. Joyful noise here. All right. It is the Feast of Noise. That's all I have to say. Let's make it work. We tried. Anyway, the Feast of Teruah is literally a feast of noise, but has picked up some names like, the Feast of Trumpets. And I guess because after people started playing trumpets, maybe they stopped playing the shofar. I don't know. The Jews didn't. It's also connected to this idea of the Jewish New Year that I have never understood. Now, as I teach the signification of this ancient biblical feast, I will periodically say the words or shofar. Each time you hear these words, you may blow your noisemaker. Let's hope you have one. If you don't, make one up. Roll up a piece of paper and make some noise. Please blow them quickly and stop so I can keep the message moving. Thank you so much for your help in this endeavor. At this time, would you please stand if you can and cover yourselves for the reading of our scriptures. I have my covering right here. We begin with Ber el Bnei Yisrael lemor b'chodesh ha-shevi'i be'echad lachodesh yiyeh lachem Shabbaton zikron teruah mikra kodesh ve'har Sinai ashan kulo mipnei asher yarad alav Yahweh Va'esh va'al ashano ke'eshen ha'kiveshon va'ye. I moved it, lost it. Va'yecherad kol ha'har ne'od va'yehi kol ha'shofar holech ve'chazak me'od Moshe yedaber ve'ha'elokim Ya'anenu vekol. Kore bamidbar panu derech Yahweh yashru ba'arava mesila lelohenu kol ge yinase vechol har ve'givea yish palu ve'haya He'akov le-mishor ve'har chasim levi-ke'ah. Va'yikach Moshe chazi hadam va'yesem ba'aganot va'chazi hadam zarach al hamizbeach va'yi Kach sefer haberit va'yikra be'aznei ha'am va'yomru kol asher diber Yahweh va'asher ve'nishma va'yikach Moshe et hadam va'yizroch al ha'am va'yomer hine dam haberit asher karat Yahweh Imachem al kol ha-devarim ha'eleh. All right, you may be seated. Now, for those of you who were with us this past Shabbat, some of that probably sounded quite familiar because I taught on this very thing last Shabbat, but we pick up tonight with my translation of Vayikra 23:24, my translation of the Hebrew. Speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, in the new moon of the seventh new moon, there will be to you Shabbaton, that is Sabbath in plural. Memorial celebrations, holy assemblies. And notice that Sabbath being in memorial celebrations is in plural and holy assemblies is in plural. Why do they do that in biblical Hebrew? To show that it is eternal. This celebration will never end. And so everything has to be in plural. And since God will never end, we don't refer to him in the singular, we refer to him in the plural. That doesn't mean that he's a Father, Son, and a Holy Ghost. That's Trinity, not plural. Plural is more than one. So keep that in mind. The reason why things like that are in plural is because they are eternal. The Shabbaton, the memorial celebration, and the holy assemblies for Teruah will never end, ever. But why is this celebration a memorial celebration and not a celebration of some future event? Well, to know that, we're going to have to move to Shemot 19:18 through 19. In my translation of the Hebrew that I read to you just a while ago is, and Mount Sinai was completely covered with smoke. because Yahweh, who is the groom, that's not in there, by the way, descended upon it in passion. Descended upon it in passion. And the smoke ascended as the smoke of a smelting furnace, and the whole mountain quivered greatly. See, it wasn't shaking like an earthquake. It was quivering. Because the last time those hands reached down and grabbed a little bit of dirt, and just saying, something pretty awesome happened. Next verse says, the sound of the shofar. Oh, I love it. Was continuous. Thank God this one is not. And became extremely loud. And Moshe spoke and answered us. Remember that from Shabbat. It does not say answered him. It says answered us by a voice. Us. It's as if we were there. Ever wonder why the Jews say that? Well, it says so right there in the Bible. Now, this was a noisy, passion-filled event. So, God came with passion. It was his passion. And he was hoping for a little from us. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. So this memorial celebration, it's not a future event. It's a memorial because when Yahweh came to Sinai, he came to consummate the marriage. Did you hear that? He came to fully enter into marriage with the people of God. He did not come to give a proposal. He had already done that. They had already accepted. He came to consummate, not betroth. Think about it. Yahweh came with the sound of the shofar. The first time. Because the children of Israel refused to hear God's voice. The Hebrew marriage now. I'm sorry, I have to look over there. There's just enough missing of the word that I can't sometimes tell what it is. Because the children of Israel refused to hear the voice of God. Remember, they said, oh, Moshe, you let him talk to you and we'll listen to whatever you have to say. But oh, my God, don't let him talk to us anymore. So do you think I'm wrong when I said that God spoke to us? Don't let him talk to us anymore. Just saying, just throwing it out there. The Hebrew, Science of Hebrew says, ends in nu. We should know what that means, us. The Hebrew marriage now takes place because of the fear, and they're asking Moshe to talk to God instead of them. It now takes place in two phases. Erusin, which is betrothal, which is what Sinai turned into, and Nisuin, which is consummation. Now, each year on this day, we celebrate the second phase of the consummation. But before we talk about the return of the groom and consummation, let's talk about the Arusa and the best man. The Arusa, it's from Aras, which is the root word. It is never used in call in the Bible. It is to erect, to build. It is to establish, to found, right? Once the bride accepted a marriage proposal, the Arusa began. This was now known as the time of the sanctification, the time of the setting apart. It's been called a lot of things. Those are two real common ones. It was a time for the bride to prepare her body, her clothes, her heart, and her mind before entering into the second phase of the marriage covenant. Because obviously, our Jewish forefathers at Sinai were not ready. And so now we've been given a time to prepare. Once the couple drank the cup of Erusin, they were legally married. So, there was the proposal, and then the proposal it was done in verbally, and then it had to be written on something, and then it had to be read aloud, and then the girl had to agree. So you go all through all of that, but once that is all agreed on and written down, and that's agreed on, then they would take a glass of some sort and pour some wine in it, and it would be full. And the man would take it and drink it halfway down, and then he would turn. He'd do that with his back to the woman. Then he would put something in it, which it could be anything. There was no rule about this. This is not biblical. This is tradition. So you could put a ring, you could put a chunk of gold or a chunk of silver. Those are the three most common. It could be a chunk of coal. I mean, if the guy you're marrying is a coal miner, who knows? I don't think that'd make the wine taste very good. I'm just saying, but it could be anything. So he would drop that in there, turn around. She would know about this, because if there's not, there's going to be some choking and spitting here in a minute. But no, that's not going to happen. So then she's going to drink her half of the cup, and then she's going to take the gift that is in the cup. She put a veil over her face to begin the Arusa, and her life as a set-apart bride was fully intact in that moment. They did not kiss. They didn't shake hands. They didn't even hug. She was now under her husband's authority. And yes, they were legally married, even though no touchy-feely, no living together, none of that was going on. But they were legally married. She was now under his authority, and she didn't live with him. Now, the bride stayed with her father in her father's house, and the groom went home to his father's house, because they both this was the time of preparation. They both went through the Arusa. The groom left provision for her because she was his responsibility. She was his acquired possession at this point. The Arusa is the time of preparation. It is the time to be set apart. It was a time for her to study her ketubah. She needed to know exactly what was expected of her in this relationship, and she needed to know what she could and should expect from her groom. It was all in the ketubah. The Arusa is a time to prepare her clothes, her heart, her body, her mind. These are all important. Why? Well, think about what happened at Sinai. They were told to go and wash their clothes and wash their bodies and not go anywhere near their spouses for 3 days. That was the body preparation, the clothing preparation, but the 3 full days was for the heart and the mind. Well, that didn't work out, so the Arusa lasts for us a bit longer now. It can last for years, by the way. Rabbi Yosef ben Yeshua said, "Then shall the Malchut Hashemayim be like 10 virgins, which took their nerot," that's their lamps, "and went out to meet their bridegroom. And 5 of them were foolish, and 5 of them wise. For the foolish took their nerot, but did not take oil with them. But the wise took oil in their containers with their nerot. While the bridegroom delayed his coming, they lived life normally. And in the middle of the night, there was a shout. Hine ba hechatan zianak." I said that wrong. Ze'ena likrato. "Behold the bridegroom. Go out and meet him." Then all the virgins arose and trimmed their nerot. And the foolish said to the wise, "Give us of your oil, for our nerot are running out." And the wise responded, "No, lest there not be enough for us and you. Go rather to those who sell and purchase for yourself." For yourselves, it's in plural. And while they were gone to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him into the wedding feast, and the door was shut, slammed shut. And later came the rest of the virgins, saying, "Lord, Lord, open up to us." But he answered and said, "Amen, I say to you, I do not know you." Why does the groom not just wait for the unwise 5? I mean, now he's going to get 10, right? Well, because their lack of preparation shows their true feelings about their groom. Remember, he's been in the Arusa as well. He's been preparing a place for them as well. He's been excited about it. He's been working toward it. He's been hoping for it. And they didn't even care enough to be ready. Now, our Yochanan ben Zakkai, is the writer of the Mishnah, said, "This may be compared to a king whom summoned his servants to a banquet without appointing a time. The wise ones adorned themselves and sat at the door of the palace, for they said, 'Is anything lacking in a royal palace?' The fools went about their work, saying, 'Can there be a banquet without preparations?' Suddenly the king desired the presence of his servants. The wise entered in adorned, while the fools entered in soiled. The king rejoiced at the wise, but was angry with the fools. Those who adorned themselves for the banquet ordered he, 'Let them sit, eat, and drink.' But those who did not adorn themselves for the banquet, let them stand and watch." That's from the Sonsino-Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Shabbat, folio 153a. Sounds real familiar, doesn't it? Going on with Rabbi Ben Yeshua. "Watch therefore, for you do not know the day or the hour." And as I asked earlier, why didn't he just wait around? Well, he now knows what their hearts were like with their preparation. Their hearts weren't in it, and there was no preparation in it. I mean, it couldn't have. How long would it have taken for them to go get the oil? Minutes, right? I mean, they live in a village. There would have been somewhere for them to go, but no. Groom's looking for someone who's just as excited about being with him as he is with being with them. All of the brides in this mashal, this is a parable, it's not something that really happened, entered into a covenant with a groom. The lack of preparation of the five unwise shows the value they placed on their groom and their covenant with him. The fact that they did not prepare proves that they did not enter into the Arusa. They did not live their life, they didn't live a set apart life. Let's put it that way. It does not matter how clean they are on the outside. They will be left behind if their heart has not changed completely and forever. Those who enter into the Arusa are not looking for a fire insurance policy. I heard some people say something like that. They are not looking for the minimum requirements for entry. To enter into Arusa do so because their heart is truly changed. They believe with their whole heart. They confess it with their mouths. They tell their friends, their family, their co-workers. They prepare. They live a set apart life. They do not just talk about it. They do it. Let's move over and talk about the best man. We can find that in Yeshayahu chapter 40, verses 3 through 4. And I read the Hebrew to you earlier. But my translation, a voice crying in the wilderness, return to the path of Torah, to the path of the Torah of Yahweh. That's the way we should say it. Beat a path directly to God. Remove everything that comes between you and God. That's a really good English translation. Why does it sound so different than everyone else's? Because there are Hebrew idioms in this verse, or in these two verses. So it said, a voice crying in the wilderness, return to the Torah, the path of Yahweh. It says, return to the path of Yahweh. Well, what's the path of Yahweh? It's the Torah. That's the path. You can call it the law if you want to, but this is instruction. This is life instruction. And then it says, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. That is a Hebrew idiom. It means beat a path directly to God. And it went on and said, every valley exalted, every mountain and hill made low, and every crooked place to be straight, and every rough place to be level. That is a Hebrew idiom. It means remove everything that comes between you and God. So it's A very simple translation. Obviously, God had someone who would go before him and prepare the way for his return. So, because of this, the best man goes before the groom to prepare the way for his return. Once the time came to enter into Nisuin, which is consummation, the best man and his entourage would go ahead of the groom about 3/4 of a mile. The groom came with shouts of joy, with the voice of the best man, and a shofar. This is so sad. This was a very noisy event and would have awakened everyone in the village. Everyone. The groom sometimes lived far enough away that he would arrive at the bride's village in the middle of the night. When this happened, the groom was called a thief in the night. As you can imagine, with all of the noise, the girl was never taken in the middle of the night without the knowledge and or consent of her parents. He did not steal her. It's just what he was called. No one knew the day or the hour the groom would return. If he returned at night, the bride would need oil for her lamp, her ner. If she had more than one, her nerot, the word we heard a while ago, because she's going to need it to see where she's going on her journey with her new groom. Now let us take a look at something from the Sepharim Shelihim. Sorry to scare the Jews, but this is Jewish history here, and this really does fit. Okay, in this book they call Thessalonians, in chapter, where are we? 4 and verse 16. There's a couple of words that are very interesting here. They use the Greek word kurios, which is used as the name of God, the proper name of God. Yahweh is the word. It is never used to mean Lord in Greek in the New Testament. So they're calling God by his proper name, but they're using this Greek word. It's important that we know this. I'm trying to understand there are some examples where some of the translations, like in Yirmiyahu and Daniel, where the Greek translators literally botched the translation. But I don't really want to go over that tonight. That's not that important. And they're talking about him coming with the shout and all that, and the keleus mati is the word that they use for teruah. Teruah. What happened to my noisemakers? Yeah, I said it twice. Anyway, let me go on to the translation. It's not really important, all this Greek stuff. We don't care too much about it. Here's my translation, and it's a flowery translation of the Greek, but here it is. Because Yahweh himself, that's why I brought up the word Lord, because they were translating from a Hebrew text into Greek, and they used kurios, which stands for Yahweh. So what they said was, because Yahweh himself will come down from the heavens with a loud, passionate noise of rejoicing, with the voice of the best man. They called him the Prince of Messengers. And with the shofar of God. And the dead who entered into the Arusa, who were anointed, will rise up first. Wow. The anointed ones have their nerot, their lamps, full, and they have a container to refill their nerot for the long journey. Didn't the others make it to the door and knock? They got there. They didn't get there with the groom, but they got there, right? They're knocking on the door. While they will not enter into the secret place, the wedding chamber, they will live in the master's house. It's right there. That's New Testament, people. And that's quite in line with Hebrew doctrine, with biblical Hebrew doctrine. So the bride was not stolen in the night without the knowledge of everyone around her. They all knew. She did not know what day or the time of day or night he would return, but she did know he would return. This phase began when the time for the, let me say this again. This phase began when the time came for the groom to go get his bride. This is the second phase. It was fully entered into when the marriage was consummated in the intimate place. Hebrews to this phase under a chuppah, which represented the cloud at Sinai. The chuppah was a large white prayer shawl. This usually took place in the bride's backyard. The bride and the groom would share a cup of wine as a token of covenant. So just like when they shared the wine when they got engaged, if you will, the betrothal, they share a wine now to enter into the final stage of marriage. Now, the passing of the cup, that idea comes directly from Exodus 24:6-8, which I read the Hebrew for you. Here's my translation. And Moshe took half the blood and put it in a basin, and half the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the scroll of the covenant, the ketubah, if you will, and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that Yahweh has said, we will do and obey. And Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which Yahweh has made with you concerning all these things. A blood covenant. Let's talk about the way that went 5,000 years ago on into the 3,000 years ago, and somewhere got lost 2,000 years ago. They used to chop the animal in half, or animals. If you had a really big family, there's going to be multiple animals. And if there's just you, it's probably going to be a pigeon. You know, you only chop up enough food for you and whoever's with you, right? So they would chop the animal in half. So let's think about when Abraham entered into this covenant with God. He had a very large family, so there was multiple animals, right? And they were large animals. And when they did something like that, the person who initiated the covenant, he was called the strong, or he or she, it made no difference. Whoever initiates the covenant is called the stronger partner. Not because they have a more powerful position in this thing. It just indicates in Bible terms who initiated it. That's the stronger partner. But that stronger partner will pass between the pieces of the animal. They started off just by cutting it in half. And they pass between it. So think about what's going to happen when you're passing between a freshly cut animal. Then the person who accepts the covenant, who is called the weaker partner, again, that person does not have a weaker position in the covenant. That person is the one who accepts the covenant. Those two things only indicate who did what and when. That's all it is in Bible terms. When we get outside the Bible, things change. But inside the Bible, that's all that stands for. But why do they go through? As they pass through, if they're excited about this covenant, they're going to be reaching their hand into this animal and splashing the blood on their bodies. This is how it went 5,000 years ago on up to the time of Moshe. It hadn't changed just a whole lot. Moshe is now sprinkling it on the people. Well, there's a lot of people there to cover with the blood, so we're going to have to kind of pass it out a little bit. Can't really do it the way they normally do it. But anyway, why on earth would they do that? Well, this is the way that the Jews used to put it. They used to say, may the same thing happen to me that happened to that animal if I break this covenant. That was the signification in why they covered themselves up with all that blood. And by the way, This was known as being washed in the blood. A phrase that you hear in Christianity a lot, and you don't even hear in Judaism anymore. At least I haven't heard it in years. The virgin wedding was a blood covenant. This is why the penalty for adultery was death. The wedding party would then head, he's picked up the bride or the ones that were ready, and they go ahead and they're heading to a place called the Me'anot in Hebrew. That is the intimate place where they would consummate the marriage. Now, the New Testament letters calls it a mansion for some reason in English. That's ridiculous. I mean, if God Almighty is setting something up for us, it probably will be a mansion, so it's not exactly a bad translation, but you're missing the whole point. Because everybody's like, build me a mansion in the corner of glory land, whatever. No, he said cabin. And that's all some will get. I'm just saying. Anyway, when the couple arrived at the Me'anot, they would go inside and close the door behind them. The best man would actually stand outside of that door with his ear to the door. This is the Middle East, a very long time ago, people. Don't ask me. The groom would put the chuppah that they stood under behind her father's house and drink the cup, right? They would take that chuppah and throw it on the bed. Then the veil would be removed. The marriage would be consummated. And after the consummation, the groom would examine the chuppah to see if there was blood. Now, if there's not, and this is the virgin marriage, it's not a marriage like between Ruth and Boaz. That was not a virgin marriage, so they would not have gone through this. But when a young girl is married for the first time, that is a virgin marriage. And if there is no blood, you had two choices. There was either a private death or there was a public death. Are you prepared for the return of your groom? You run from him when you see the fire and hear the shofar. Have you prepared your heart, or is it still hard? Have you prepared your mind, or have you been too busy to think about it? Is your lamp full, or have you let it dwindle? Do you have extra oil for the journey, or are you counting on having time to purchase some at the last second? Are you ready to drink the cup of passion? Are you his and his alone? Have you been learning the terms of your ketubah? Are you ready for and anticipating his return? Will he know you? Or do you just look the part? Will this year's celebration be yet another memory of your non-committal? Or will this year's celebration be the memory of the day you entered into God's passion? Will you give into his passion? Will you drink the cup of passion? Shalom, shalom, y'all.
The blessing, Be'ivrit. Yavarecha Yahweh beyish merecha. Ya'er Yahweh panavelecha vihunecha. Yisa Yahweh panavelecha veyasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness and favor and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.